guys, so I'm here today to do a tag video, and that is the book Adaptation Wishlist tag. This tag was started by Monica over at She Might Be Monica, who also tagged me. If you have not checked out Monica's videos yet, then I stand by the statement that you're missing out. She's absolutely fabulous and I highly recommend you go check out her channel. If you want to stick around here for a few minutes beforehand, then I'm going to answer the questions of this tag, and they're pretty straightforward. The idea of the tag is that we have a list of different types of adaptations a book can be made into, and to answer some books that we would like to see be adapted. So without further ado, let's get into the books. Firstly is probably the most obvious, and that is movies. So a book you would like to see adapted into a film. I decided to go for two answers here because one has already been adapted into a film before, but it's absolutely atrocious. And the other one I don't believe has. And the first one you're probably not going to be surprised to hear me say because I've said it before, and that is Eragon, the first in Christopher Paolini's inheritance cycle. This is a high fantasy series about dragons and dwarves and elves and humans, and it's absolutely fantastic. It's one of my favourite series, and the first one was adapted, and despite having an amazing cast, I don't know if it just didn't have the budget or the screenwriter just was having a bad day. It was an absolute flop and it was super disappointing. I don't think I've ever been more disappointed by a film adaptation, and they never made any of the sequels. So I would love to see that remade into a film with the right budget and the right scriptwriter, and you know what, the return of some of the original cast members actually, and a great director. You know, we could do this like Lord of the Rings style. It could be epic. So I stand by that one. And the second one is a children's book I'd love to see adapted, and that is The Little White Horse by Elizabeth Gouge. This is another one of my favourite books of all time, and it's a lovely, magical, mysterious children's book set in a mysterious grand house, and it's absolutely lovely, and I think it would just make an absolutely wonderful film. I think if you like things like his Dark Materials, you might like this. I'm not saying they're the same, but I just feel like, you know, you might like it if you haven't read. And I could just visualise a lovely, dark, mysterious, magical, period set film. It would be lovely. But the next category is TV shows. I've also picked two, because one I'd like to see adapted into a mini-series, preferably by the BBC, because they do mini-series like nobody else, and the other as an ongoing television series. So the one I'd like to see as a mini-series is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I think give yourself 4 one-hour episodes or 4 1.5-hour episodes. You could turn this into something absolutely fantastic and it would just be absolutely wonderful. The Secret History is about a group of American college students who all study classics and get involved in trying to recreate Bacchanalias, and as they start to fall apart a little bit, something very bad happens. But for TV series, I would love to see Robin Hobb's Rainwild Chronicles adapted into a television series, and possibly just all of the series that Robin Hobb has set in the same world as the Rainwild Chronicles. I haven't read any of the other series, but I can just imagine all of them being absolutely fantastic if they're as good as the Rainwild Chronicles on the television. I can just picture each series in the books being adapted into a television season, and each season being a different series. And I love fantasy television shows. I don't think there's enough of them. Love things like Xena and Merlin and The Legend of the Seeker. The Rainwild Chronicles in particular is about dragons, so you know, I love me some dragons. And I am perfectly capable of tolerating kind of low budget special effects, so that wouldn't bother me. The next category is cartoon, and funnily enough I was actually just reading a graphic novel thinking in my head this would make an absolutely lovely children's cartoon mini-series or film, and that is Geis, A Matter of Life and Death by Alexis Deakin, and this is actually the first in a graphic novel trilogy, and there's just something about it. I was like, oh, I could see this being a lovely mystical fantasy cartoon film. These are what some of the images look like, and it is a fantasy about a society where the matriarch has just passed away, and she has set a challenge to 50 people to determine who will be the next ruler of their city. You could just completely imagine it being a really nice like illustrated cartoon. Next up is graphic novel, funnily enough, and I don't know if this is kind of cheating, but I would love to see more of Terry Pratchett's books from the Discworld series adapted into graphic novels. Some of them have been. I do own a copy of The Light Fantastic in graphic novel form. For me, they're such vivid stories with so much that would be amazing to see drawn out. I would obviously have loved to have seen them all illustrated by Josh Kirby, who illustrated the original books, the first ones that were published. But if somebody were to illustrate them in that style that's quite eclectic and messy and fantastical and colourful, I would have absolutely loved that. In particular, I'd love to see the Weird Sisters and the Wee Freemen. I just think those two would be very high up on my wish list of Terry Pratchett Discworld graphic novels. But the next adaptation is play, and again I had to, it's so hard to narrow it down. The two books I'd like to see adapted into plays are The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, which has been out for quite a long time, so I don't know if it ever has been adapted into a play, but I've never seen it. If you ever hear of an performance of The Handmaid's Tale in play form, then do let me know. This is a dystopian book set in a world where women are very tightly categorised and very few people are fertile, so certain women are kind of kept as handmaids to potentially give families children. It's amazing if you haven't read it, and I just think it could be a phenomenal play. Another one that I think would make a nice play would probably be quite a short play, and there wouldn't actually be much scene changes or even that much props at all. It would just be a kind of beautiful performance, and that is Grief is a Thing with Feathers by Max Porter. It is beautiful prose, and I just think they should take the text from the book and adapt it to be performed with maybe somebody in a giant crow costume. I think it could be really beautiful and really emotional. It's a book inspired by Ted Hughes' collection of poetry, The Crow, and it's about a father who is a Ted Hughes scholar and his two sons who have recently lost their mother and them dealing with that grief. But last but certainly not least is musicals, so a book you'd like to see adapted into a musical. I've also gone for two, so briefly, I think somebody should adapt The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy into a musical. It would be epic. I mean, it's a radio show, it's a book series, it was a television series, it's a film. I even once saw a live performance on stage of the radio show, which was kind of like a play. But I think somebody could write some epic songs for that and actually take So Long and Thanks for All the Fish, but add some more fantastic science fiction comedy songs in there and some amazing colourful staging, and it would be epic. I think loads of people would go and see it. I really think that should be a musical. Lastly is The Hobbit. Now The Hobbit is already full of songs. I'm surprised it hasn't been adapted into a musical already, and it is one of the biggest tragedies of the past decade that the second two films in the series were missing songs. Like, that was my favourite thing about the first one. I know some people didn't like it, but I absolutely loved the two songs, and I wish there'd been more. And then I wish there'd been songs in the following two films. You know, the elves sing in the books, there's loads of songs. I just think it would work, and I think it should be turned into a musical for the stage. But now it's time to tag some people, so I'm going to tag Portal in the Pages, Simon from Savage Reads, Mercedes from Mercy's Bookish Musings, and Lauren from Reads and Daydreams. Those are the people I tag. But if anybody else wants to do this, I would highly encourage them to do so. I think it's a lot of fun, and do check out Monica's video if you haven't already. Until next time guys, happy reading, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye! Hi guys, so I wanted to start a series of videos in which I recommend to you 3 books in one video, either within a similar genre or containing similar themes or that give me similar feelings, that I think if you like one in the bunch, you'll like the others.